people. And when I signed up, I had thought that I was going to be of some use, calming and protecting people, but there was none of that. There was just nothing. I woke up the day after the election depressed, one that Florida was lost, and that it was all the projections of Biden running away with it and the blue wave and all the senators flipping seats, and it just didn't happen. And but now I'm feeling much better. I think it's likely that Biden will win, and even if the Senate, even if the Republicans hold the Senate, which they might not do if both Georgia senators go to runoffs in January, and they both go Democrat, then there would be a 50-50 split, and then Kamala Harris would be the deciding factor. But nevertheless, just to not have Trump, having to listen to him, look at him, and just so destructive to all the things I care about, will be, if possible, wonderful. Did you have a chance to look? Well, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, actually.
Good.
Today I feel like everything's just a little bit more quieter. I have been really sort of pushing self-care in my social media channels, specifically on LinkedIn and on Instagram, and really trying to push this ask for help. There's help out there, go and get it. So I'm feeling today that there is that sort of, the excitement's gone, the anxiety's moved on, the depression's moved on. Now it's what do we do? Is it okay to move forward?
Are people contacting you? Are they asking for help?
I've actually seen an increase. So I've had, just over the last week and a half, 4 new clients, which is awesome. But the engagement on Instagram has been much better, which has been really sort of encouraging. And it's, I think it's one of those, it's such an interesting time. And I think everything plays out for a reason. And I really do think that this election is really to help us focus on our self-care. So the question I sort of wanted to ask to you, you being in the thick of it, being at the election place in a position of wanting to support other people, how did you look after yourself?
Have we turned on the recording?
We have.
Okay, good. Well, that's a great question, because I would describe myself as pretty centered, know my feelings, wise to a certain degree. Boy, I was I had really surprisingly disturbing thoughts about how I felt about Latino males voting for Trump, and I snapped at Ray last night, misinterpreting something he said, and he snapped back, and normally we would just be eating and watching television, but I said, we're not watching, let's talk. And I said, but let's talk remembering that we're both really depressed and feeling frayed nerves, not just because of the election, but also COVID.
Yeah.
The unending pandemic. So let's take that in consideration. But I do apologize for misinterpreting what you were saying, and I want to make sure that we can move forward with you being okay. And then after, yes, he said yes, but I felt badly, and I felt, we take out on the people we love the most the frustration that we can't take out on the people who most frustrate us. But that's only one example. I mean, our house is very harmonious, and one of the things that I did for myself yesterday is to go buy plants. I love, I bought a bunch of
great.
Bright pink vinca to go along the pool, and I haven't planted them yet, but I've watered them. I worked in the garden yesterday, which takes care of me. Trying to get sleep, eating well, not watching any talking heads on television. No, I mean, already with the pollsters being off again.
Yeah.
After saying, "Oh, we made big mistakes in 2016. We're all over that now. We've corrected our mistakes, and Biden's going to walk away with it. You're going to have a blue wave." What are they? I mean, can imagine yourself trying to sell your services the next time around, because political parties pay a lot of money. Candidates pay a lot of money to these pollsters to tell them, what are people thinking? What do I have to do? Who do I have to appeal to? So I'd hate to be in that business the next election.
I hope they're really trying to reinvent themselves now, and maybe there's a better path for them.
Well, I think, two things I wanted to, that are related to me. One is that people are saying, well, Trump voters often wouldn't admit that they were voting for.
I read that, yeah.
Now, you can also see people flying flags all over the place for Trump and honking their horns in their big pickup trucks. But I think that there are a large number of people who were embarrassed, which ties into this whole thing. A recent study showed, and this goes into your and my discussion about hiding our light.
Mm-hmm.
A study from the Hastings Institute suggested that nearly half of Republican gay men are embarrassed by their sexual orientation or see it as a hindrance.
That's
that
so
ties
interesting.
Really, well, it doesn't shock me, because I've always tried to figure out, why would somebody be gay and a Republican? I mean,
right.
Ray would always argue that Democrats are much better with money than Republicans have been for the average person. So don't claim that it's, for finance. I often think that we seek the approval of the people who disapprove of us most if we don't give ourselves approval.
Yep. I think it ties in, to what you wrote and sent me about the hero's journey. And the hero's journey has been very prominent with sort of the work that I've been doing over the last week, which is, very similar to this question of, why are they ashamed? Yet they're still voting,
Right.
Like right there, that smacks you in the forehead. Like, if you're ashamed of who you're voting for, maybe don't vote for them.
Right. Where's the disconnect there? I don't get it.
But it from my perspective and what I've seen, the hero's journey has been really prominent. And it has been this question about people coming into this election and not being 100% sure of how they're meant to position themselves in this election. So, and it's sort of come, people have been in this sort of very warrior fighting energy. And then this election came in, and, we've had time with COVID to really, a lot of us, to sit with ourselves and decide, is that abrasive, always in the fight energy really serving me? So we have these people that are on that brink of questioning it. We have an election where people are like, do I need to be different this election? What is my difference? And something that has been written in every single client session that I've had this week is the soft and gentle hero's journey. The hero doesn't need to be that warrior. The hero doesn't need to be that person that is this front and has the suit of armor. And behind of it, this person trying to fill the suit.
No.
It is very much that it's the exact opposite. Yeah,
aren't you naked? Isn't the hero naked? Really? I mean,
underneath the armor.
because what you're doing is letting go of your ego.
Yeah.
I heard in a movie last night, I heard, your ego is not your amigo, which I thought,
That's really good.
isn't that cute? I thought it was cute. But, your ego is your armor, right? And, how does the hero make the journey dragging their ego along
Yeah.
how do you discover what your light is? Because your light and your ego are at odds, I would think, at least from my experience.
And I think it speaks very much, to those people that are ashamed of who they're voting for. It speaks to those pollsters who clearly have a break in their process, that they are not just a little bit wrong, they're a lot wrong.
Well, Haley, answer me this, because you're sitting on the outside looking in on this.
I have that wonderful benefit.
Yeah. How is it that, with the difference of just maybe 3 million votes, that half the country can think so diametrically differently than the other half about looking at the same exact data? Well, except we watch completely different news programs. But I think I told you last time we talked that I asked a Republican friend who's in the Army, how can you support this person who is an abuser of women and makes fun of disabled people? He said, if I needed an exterminator, I'd want the best. And I don't care whether he's an adulterer. So this is all about that you feel that he's getting a job done that you want done. Well, how do you compare? And I didn't pursue this because it's really hard to have these conversations.
Yeah.
But without asking accusatory questions. But how do you compare what you consider to be important, the work getting done, such as building a wall between the U.S. and Mexico, versus the values that you were raised with, about, love thy neighbor as thyself. Because I keep wanting, this is an important point for me, is that I keep wanting to believe that we're all the same and that it's just opportunity that makes us different. Thich Nhat Hanh talked about he told the story about the pirate, who raped the 12-year-old girl, and she, jumped to her death in the water. And of course, our heart goes out to the 12-year-old. He said, but if I was raised as the pirate was raised, I would be the pirate.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true, or?
I think what you're saying is true, but also what he's saying is true. We are not all the same. We all have completely unique journeys and completely unique stories that build the person that we are. And so when you're looking at the stage that is in front of us right now, and there is so much polarization, it's taking a moment to understand context and to give context the spotlight. On both sides, we very rarely give time, space, and energy into the full picture here. What happened with that person's experience and their conditioning that this is their belief system? How are they feeling? Fear is driving a lot of that. And we have had a person that has been the leader of a very energetic nation that has been the face of how people are actually feeling.
Mm-hmm.
His vote wasn't fraudulent the first time round. It was a representation of how many people are feeling that they're not safe. It really has very little to do with the headlines that are in the politics. It has very little to do with immigration. It has very little to do with,
China.
This person, China and 5G, and this person taking my money and I can't give my money away. It has everything to do with the individual and the family that they grew up in, and the ancestral lines, the soul lines that are at the root of that fear. And
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're in a society where we place very little at best value at understanding our personal stories and allowing sort of that truth to come through.
So it would seem to me that it would be an easier conversation with a person who was liberal in U.S. terminology with regard to attitudes on social issues, that there's support of women's right to choose, that there support, immigration reform, so that, it would be easier to help that person have the discussion about their light and discovering their light than it would be to have the discussion with somebody who was a social conservative, not fiscal, but social conservative. And you and I are both interested in all of them, right? We're not just interested in helping people on the political left. How do we start the conversation with the people on the political right who are social conservatives about their inner light? And how do we attract their interest in it?
I think it's simply asking the question, what does this mean to you? Because I think people jump on the labels. Do people actually understand what the immigration policy is? Do they truly understand how it impacts a person? And I think if you go to that level and say, what does immigration mean to you? How are you personally in your day-to-day impacted by immigration? And I think there, most people are going to panic because they don't understand what's going on. But it also gives them a moment to stop and reflect and be like, actually, how is that a negative impact on my life? Or how is it a positive impact on my life? And then you can have the conversation, because it's a human conversation at that point. That's when you start to see similarities, because it's, if you're speaking to somebody that is having, they're very sort of against immigration because people take our jobs. And then you ask them, well, what has been your experience with people taking your job? 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, I've not actually experienced it. But then it's like, all right, so what has been your experience? Like, how do you feel about this? You're then going, as I said, to the actual very human aspect of, why is it that you feel like this?
Well, but they have to be willing to be even in a conversation.
They have to be willing to be in a conversation. But again, if you're going to be the person that has the information, you have a responsibility to do something with that information. So, with me, sort of understanding that there's sort of a deeper aspect to this, a deeper level to this, we do have the responsibility of going to people and saying, I can see that we don't really agree, but what is it that really gets you upset about this point? Explain to me what your personal contribution or your personal sort of tangent to this issue is. And that changes it. It changes the energy of the discussion. It's no longer a Trump Biden or a Democratic Republican. It's, who are you? How is this touching your light?
Did you read my Facebook post the night before the election, Monday night, where, I basically said that, whoever won, I'm wanting to be about all of us.
All of us.
And that gloating or wishing ill are not qualities that I want in myself.
Absolutely.
And this was before I would, I knew what was going to happen at all. And it was curious to me how, and I thought it was a good, piece, but how few people you know, checked in on it and said, like, compared to, you know, other posts, and I don't think it was because of the quality of the thinking. I think it's because sometimes people just can't think about being benevolent if they're really pissed or
You know,
feeling threatened, angry. Um,
I contribute, and I read your post, and it's, you know, so many people that are in my circle had the same message through this elections, and I have posted something very similar where the question I've clearly been getting, because I can see energy, is just tell me who's going to win, what's going to happen, are we going to be okay? And it's really not about two dudes and a White House. This election is really about, what are you going to do? How are you going to behave when the results come out? Where is your level of tolerance for those results? Because either way, whoever wins this, there's going to be people that are ecstatically happy, and there's going to be people that are sad and in fear.
Yeah. Well, I think with the results that there are now, with everything so close, no one is going to feel that they just don't belong because it is so close. If you know, if it had
and
been,
that's what we have to remember. You know,
yeah,
in our conversations, in what we're saying, we need to be consistent with our message. This is not about who voted for who. It's about, where are we going now? What have we learned? And, you know, it goes back to that hero's journey. Are we going to fight? How well has that helped us over the last 4 years? Not really. We're actually a little bit worse. So how do we want to now move forward, regardless of who's in the White House? What is our hero's journey at the very individual level? And it's not going to be, you know, you don't turn the ship overnight. Those people that are so polarized, which has been the energy of the last 4 years, it's going to take some time and some consistent messaging of, how about you just choose gentleness? How about you choose tolerance? And your posts about, you know, encouraging people to just have some context. Look at this from a different perspective. They keep seeing that. It's just the seed gets planted. The more they see it, the more that it starts to expand within them, and the more space they then get to enjoy, and question, how do I want to behave? What does tolerance mean to me? How would I feel if I was on the other side of this?
Yeah, I think it's going to take for people to keep checking in to see what you have to say.
Yeah.
You have to be saying something that, I mean, I read to Ray the night before the election. I read to him what I had written, and he said, "Well, that's good." And I said, "Do you think it's wise?" And he said, "No." And I was, "What?" And he said, "I don't think you should. You worry too much about what other people are thinking, not about me, but you know." And I said, "But I see myself as a teacher, you know, and so I put out what I'm feeling and try to keep it very personal. This is, you know, me. This is how I'm feeling, not you." So that people have the opportunity to look at it and say, you just wrote what I've been feeling, but I haven't had anyone else to talk to about it.
Yeah. You know, a couple points there. When you're in a position of doing enough work on yourself to be able to be in a place of neutral reflection, that comes with the responsibility of living your life and walking the talk. And that is teaching people. It's not, you know, indoctoring people. It's putting out there in the channels that you're comfortable with. This is what's happening with me. Does it resonate with you? We're
Mm-hmm.
in very clearly in a time where people aren't comfortable truly showing who they are and truly showing what they're thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
the actual engagement that we are measuring success on, the likes, the interactions, is really not a true reflection of what is going on underneath. And that speaks to this feeling that both you and I have, which is there's something bubbling up. There's nothing measuring that right now. There's nothing measuring resonance. So when you're putting those posts out there, it takes an enormous amount of courage on your part to show your light. This is what you're thinking. This is what you're feeling. Maybe it'll resonate with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, that resonation right now is just the seed.
And if you're going to, I think if you're going to be a good teacher, you have to sort of understand what's happening at the time. You can't be bringing up a subject that no one's thinking about.
No one's thinking about,
It'll get lost. It's going to get lost. You know, I wrote a piece.
Relevance is key.
Yeah, I wrote a piece last week about senior sexuality, and I knew that I needed to get it in before the election, because after no one was going to pay attention to that topic, and I'm actually fascinated with it. I don't know if you, I think
I love
I
it.
sent you that.
It's, yeah, I
and
loved it.
I did a podcast yesterday with a sex therapist friend of mine on the issue, and I didn't really see, you know, I got interested in it because as a volunteer working with people older than me, and I'm 72, I got asked this question by somebody in his 80s who wanted to be hugged and kissed and didn't know how to find it. And I started digging, and suddenly I'm thinking, well, this may be the thing that you're supposed to do next.
Why not?
I thought I was going to be an end of life doula, but this sort of,
maybe
I'll
you're
be
a continuation of life doula.
Yeah, an escort doula.
I mean, if the need is there, why not?
Yeah, well, I think the need is there.
I think it's there.
And I think we just have to be creative on how we help older people navigate the loneliness they feel and remedy it by, hiring somebody to come in. And there's an organization for cuddlers.
I mean, it's like,
you just go, you cuddle. That's all you do.
But honestly, in this day and age, COVID, it was this week, I think it was on Monday night,
Yeah.
I received my first hug in 6 months.
Oh, no, really?
And I thought I was maybe 1 in 10 in the world that maybe hadn't hugged anybody in 6 months. I put it out to my friends.
Yeah.
So many of them have not hugged a person because of COVID.
Yeah, I have hugged, but that's because, I hug the mailman. I mean, watch out, Brian's coming.
But, with COVID, made this separation, this 6 feet of don't touch anybody so much, made it hit absolutely everybody. So, this need for human connection, you see it, primarily in places where you don't even think people are thinking about it. Like, why would an 80-year-old person want to cuddle? Surely they should be over that. Like, no, we all need human people. We need the connection.
Yeah. So you and I have permission to jump around subjects, right?
We do. This is our show.
This is our time together. And if people find it of interest, that's great. Have you thought any more about the telling your story or reaching out to your folks? Or
I haven't I haven't done any more in terms of reaching out to my parents or sort of dealing with them, but I have found a very strong vein of confidence.
Oh, good.
In me speaking my story. So, my story is it's literally like a plate of spaghetti. And it makes me laugh because people are like, you're straight. And I'm like, I like men, but there's nothing straight about my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, me telling my story, there is that aspect of the harshness and the pain associated with it. But there's also that aspect of me coming into the person I am, the person of me working in an investment bank and being very sort of square and straight in that life, and then switching over to a person that I am now, where I'm living in Mexico and I'm a, you know, energetic worker. And I had the opportunity last night to speak with, I had dinner with two men that I would have been very intimidated being around. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, oh my goodness, I'm totally okay with saying, yeah, I was an investment banker and no, nothing happened to me, nothing went wrong. Actually, things went right. I didn't have a sort of lose my mind and couldn't do anything, so I'm just trying out this woohoo work. It's more of an empowered, and I told that the story from that aspect of I empowered myself. I am now in my power. That's my hero's journey. So, you know, I can definitely feel that confidence, and it's a very strong sort of, how is my light manifesting? It's manifesting in that aspect of strength and confidence and empowering.
You're in your skin, as you know, as people will.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
And
feel that it fits. It fits
it
comfortably.
fits. And it, you know, it started, you know, obviously in talking to you, which obviously you and I coming together is very synchronistic. It also fits with how you know, I'm always learning in my journey of working with energy. I'm always questioning the information that I'm given, whether it's through my visions or whether it's through working with clients and, you know, what is outside of work. And one of the things, you know, very early on I questioned was, why do we always start at the crown of our head when we meditate and go through the chakras? Why not the root? I'm now teaching people to start with the root. And, you know, another thing that I recently asked was, why is it outside of me? Why am I looking outside of me for the divine? And they were very clearly, well, that's been the problem all along. You keep looking outside, you keep looking around to see that stream of light. You have to look inside. That light is within you and it is in your skin. There's no more looking around and like looking up to see if you can see the divine or if you can see the light. It's look down into your heart and see the light.
I can, you know, coming out as gay when I was 26, publicly, really public, it was because of the loss associated with it, and because of the time period, because it was early 70s, you know, which was, you know, Simon and Garfunkel, you know, Bridge Over Troubled Water. It was all the early spiritual books, you know, Siddhartha, etc. It was easier for me to identify that as my light, that I was courageously bringing forth who I truthfully was, than it is now discerning, because there's no drama right now to my discernment, right? I'm not losing, at least at this point, anything for trying to figure out, well, what else is there besides, you know, liberating yourself as a gay person who is spiritual, who has, you know, loves a lot of the values and maintained them that you had since you were, you know, growing up Catholic. I'm having more trouble naming the prism of light that I'm exploring. Does that make sense? Are you?
It totally makes sense. And that prism of light, I recommend you name it Brian. That prism of light is you. It's all aspects of you. And it just so happens that I'm talking and we're having a conversation in the aspect of you that is Brian. It is the aspect of you as Brian that is asking this question of, what do I name it? It's called Brian.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's really good.
Yeah, the mantras that, again, I always, going back to that teaching thing, when I'm with clients, and there's an element of just reading the energy that is out there too, but there's also an element of teaching through my own experience. And what's really helped me get that confidence and really helped me embody it and radiate it is seeing that Haley encompasses all aspects of the light. So Haley is this massive beam of light that is the divine, that is the angels, that is the cosmos, that is the elements, that is Mother Earth, that is the Earth Keepers, that is my soul lineage, my ancestral lineage. So my mantra right now is, man, I love you, Haley Evans. I really believe in you, Haley Evans, because for me, and in saying I believe in you, Haley Evans, is me saying I believe in the divine. I believe in the universe. I believe in my higher self, my future self. I believe that in the greater good, because those are all aspects of my light. It just so happens that as we're talking, I'm presenting as Haley.
Haley, is it easier for you to do that by yourself in Mexico, away from voices who would give you negative feedback? Like the nun who said to me in 4th grade, you don't make quite the impression you think you do. I mean, those negative.
Definitely.
Still there, right?
That has been, which I'm entirely grateful to Haley Evans and her future self, her higher self, for planning this path for me. There is a reason why I have been in some kind of isolation over the last 3 years, is to be able to unravel and find my truth without a bunch of, noises and voices jumping in and saying, you're crazy. I've had them. I've had people very close to me tell me that you're in a cult. You need help. We need to get you help. And, my response to that has been, no, I'm not. And if you would like more information about what I'm doing, please ask me. None of these people have asked me what I believe in, how I'm feeling with it. They're just looking and, being threatened themselves, and you're in a cult.
Yeah, I think people who care about you, their first concern is, are you happy?
Are you happy?
And if you say, yes, I am, their next concern, especially if they're a parent, is, okay, are you eating? Can you afford, to take care of yourself? Yep. I'm making money doing what I'm doing. I've got shelter. I'm eating well. Then that should sort of satisfy the person who truly loves you, that, okay, let's move on. And now maybe if you're curious, why don't you ask Haley, what does it really mean? I mean, what is this that you do? Tell me more about it. Tell me how you help people. Tell me, because I'm interested, not that I'm trying to convince you that you're wrong.
And, that is the circle of friends that I have now. It's very much quality over quantity. But, my journey has brought me to Mexico. It's where it has allowed me to really get very clear about who I am and get to the truth of it in a very different way than many people have. And it does relate to a question I was asked on Monday night, which was, if I want to be myself, do I need to do the same things you're doing? Do I need to give up everything? Do I need to move away, to Mexico and live in a tiny little town where nobody hugs you for 6 months?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the question is, no, you don't. That's just my journey. That's just what
Right.
I needed to do so that I can find myself, that I can be in my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the same purpose. People do it in way different ways. They experience who they are based on what they need at a given time. Some
Right.
people, you know, they might get divorced. Some people might get married, and that opens everything up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, you know, the hero's journey is unique to each person that there is.
Yeah, and I especially making decisions such as divorce. Uh, there's great caution about this. You know, it's very exciting to be on this journey. And having been on it myself, I understand all the things you're feeling and the fact that you're willing to sacrifice everything for it, and making that decision that you're willing to sacrifice everything for it is wonderful, but it doesn't mean you should sacrifice everything in order to have it, because you can have it
You can have
perhaps without sacrificing anything,
it. And that's the
right?
goal, isn't it?
Except except ego, right? I
That
mean,
is the
I
goal, to
think,
have it all.
right. And
You
you can
know,
have it all as long as all doesn't mean that they make a movie about your life, and that's
and that you're not happy with the
that,
movie.
are you okay without a movie?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think it's really important. And, you know, my wish that through these talks that you and I have these discussions, you know, the original intention was to show people that it isn't just one way. There
Mm-hmm.
isn't just one way to start shining your light. The right way is the way that works for you, that feels good for you, the decisions that resonate for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's just like, you know, I never, when I started out on my journey, I kind of had some baselines where I was like, I'm never going to do these three things. If I get to those points, that's my sign that I need to go back into corporate. I blew through those points.
Mm-hmm.
Those baselines, I blew through them. I'm in a position now where I can look at them and be like, thank goodness I blew through them. You know, it's got me to the point now where I can be like, man, Haley Evans, I love you. Man, I am so proud of you. But that's my journey. I
Right.
needed, very specifically, I needed some super intense times to allow me to open up and be like, okay, I actually believe that I can do this. I'm not
What
looking
was
for other people to tell me that I can do it.
what was really useful for me was in accepting that I was an instrument of something larger than myself.
Yeah.
Uh, People would say, "Oh, I could never, I could never do what you did. I couldn't do that." And I think, well, that's because I was the right person at the right time in the right place. Uh, I had, I had all of the tools that I needed to do the work that I've done, right? And I know that I surrendered to it
Mm-hmm.
and accepted it. And there was a lot of loss. There was loss, but it wasn't my reaction to the loss would be different than somebody else doing the exact same thing having
Absolutely.
the same loss, you know, uh, because we have different personalities.
Yeah. And it, you know, goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the context.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that we each have a unique story. So that means we have a different experience. We have a different way of seeing things. So,
Did I
you
tell
know.
you this? I don't know. What's our time like? I'm
Oh, we're
not looking.
good. We've got
Okay.
like 15 minutes left on the hour.
Okay. So did I tell you the story? Stop me if I did, because I don't like repeating stories about being in second grade and the school play about the king and the golden pears.
You did not tell me this story.
Okay. So this is second grade in St. Matthew's Catholic School in Flint, Michigan. And my folks took us to Florida for Christmas, and we took like a extra week. And in that time, they cast the play for the second graders we're going to put on. So I came back, and the nun, I said, well, sister, what's my part? What do I do? And she said, well, you're going to be a stagehand. You know, you won't be in costume. You're going to be out of on the side, and you're going to hold the platter of the golden pears. And then when the king's assistant comes over to you, out of everyone's sight, you're going to hand the platter to the assistant, and he will go present them to the king. I said, okay. So my mom's in the audience, and all of her friends, and the mothers of all the second graders. So it comes time, and the guy comes over to me in his costume. I walk around him, and in my school uniform, walk up to the king and present him with the pears with
That's
and of
awesome.
course my mother, you know, and her friends are laughing. So that little kid, you know, who needed to be out there, was the same one who got tapped to go do it, you know. So I end up speaking on being gay in front of the National Security Agency. That wasn't a hard thing for this person who, for all of his life, you know, was on stage. You know? So don't compare, you know.
Don't compare. And
don't
don't settle.
This is I was the right guy, you know. And I had a skill with language that maybe somebody else didn't, right? So people could listen to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I have no doubt in my mind that I was used.
Absolutely. And you're still being used. I mean, it's not
will
like you've had it made a decision, I'm done.
Right. But for what I did, and there are lots and lots of people out there doing now, right?
Yeah.
What I sort of was given the privilege of pioneering doing. But I feel like, okay, so there's lots more to
There's
do.
lots more.
The world is still an imperfect place, even though it is perfect in its, you know, but there are people's needs. And that's the way I see life, is that if there's a need and you see it, you respond to it.
Yes.
But that's me. That's not everybody.
It's not
And
everybody. And that's okay that it's not everybody.
and it is okay that it's not everybody. So that's and going circling all the way around. So that's how I see the world, and that's why I vote the way I do.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody doesn't see the world that way, right, then I can't be angry at them for voting differently than me, because what I'm thinking is, well, they see exactly what I see, you know,
Yeah.
and they see it through the same eyes. How come they can't get it? Why don't they get it? I get it. You know, my friends get it. Well, why don't you get it?
Right.
And the temptation is to get angry at people and feel justified in doing so. But I'm not the judge. I don't want that responsibility.
No, and I think that's where the hero's journey is really soft and gentle. Move softly and gently, you know.
Yeah.
Tolerance and compassion is what's important here. And I think your path in this lifetime has, you know, been very significant and very synchronistically planned to allow you to be a leader. And that does, you know, again, you know, the responsibility, it's not a burden. It's a pure, joyful responsibility to be able to look at things, to surrender into them, to look at it and be like, you know what, there's a lot going on. How am I going to be the example? How am I going to put myself out there and show people that this is the world I would like to live in?
And know yourself well enough to know what not to do, what not to get involved in.
Know when to walk away.
you remember Lily Tomlin, you know, Lily Tomlin
Yeah.
and all of her characters, and one of them is a 5-year-old Edith Ann. And so Lily says to Edith Ann, people say you're bossy. And Edith Ann says, I'm not bossy, my ideas are just better. Right? So I know that I'm Edith Ann. And so I don't join boards of directors if I can help it, or, you know, because my ideas are just better. I have to take over. So when you said leader, yep, but I got to do it on my terms, and it's best not to screw other groups or efforts up, right? Because
Read your room.
I know myself, right?
And I think, responsibility is a big word, I guess, this session, because, with that responsibility of being a leader, with that responsibility of just acknowledging and surrendering that you actually have really good ideas, comes the responsibility.
Or I think they're good.
Good ideas. I mean, history has also proven, your past has always proven that they're typically good ideas.
Yeah.
They worked out pretty well. But with that responsibility too comes reading the room and knowing that this is not your room. This is somebody else's room. This is why there are so many, different people out there doing different things, shining their light in different ways, because that's their room. Your room is over here.
I made a comment on Facebook about the Supreme Court justice, and a lawyer.
I loved that one.
Yeah, well, a woman who, I don't know her personally, but she's a Facebook friend. She said, she wrote, "Get back in your lane," because she was a lawyer and she sort of knew a lot more than I did about how it works and what this woman's, past voting record was. And I thought that was cute, And I wrote her, I said, I knew when I made a comment that I was stepping into traffic that was fast moving, but you feel like you better, you have to say something. So
I think you do. And,
put it out there.
Put it out there. And one of the things that we spoke about very early on in our conversations was you never know who it's going to resonate with, and you don't know the power of that impact.
Right.
So, again, putting it out there with acknowledgement that, with the intention of, may this reach the people who need to hear it.
And may I not need 100 likes in order to feel okay about what I did.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you okay without the movie?
Am I okay without the movie? Right. Right. It's exactly, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
And I'm very happy and fortunate at this point to be, I'm totally okay without the movie, because the one that plays every moment is a really great movie.
Yeah, if you don't need the movie, because not only do you, if you go that route, you not only need to have the movie about your life made, but it has to be starring, Meryl Streep, and then it has to win the best movie.
Yeah.
If it doesn't win best movie, then why make the
What's
damn
the
movie?
point?
I got to get an Oscar, right? And so it never ends. It just never ends in terms of what makes your life happy. What will make you happy?
And full circle, I think that's the question we should all be asking today. What will make you happy? What is the life that you want to be a part of? Is it a place and a country that is tolerant, that is compassionate towards you? If the answer is yes, then you've got to start being tolerant and compassionate to others.
And yes, and you have to start right at home.
Right at home.
Right. This
at
is
the
not
dinner table.
If you're able to, people say, well, I want to cure smallpox in, Uganda or wherever. Well, so that's great, and if you get Bill Gates's money, then you should do that. But let's start smaller with you,
Yep.
Right? Did you get your flu shot yet? Right. are you going to infect people in your circle? I mean, if you're going to go with with the illness
Yeah.
thing, start with yourself. Start with, is there love in this home, in this neighborhood, in this cul-de-sac, on the street, in my town? Do the people, when I go to check out at the grocery store, do they look forward to me coming to their lane? Or did they think, oh no,
God, yeah.
here they come, prepare yourself, right?
Yeah. And this we create it. We're the president of our own worlds. So, I had made this video earlier in the week and posted it where I was just like, this election is not about two dudes in a White House. It's about you. It's about how you're going to be the president of your own community.
Mm-hmm.
And we really need that right now. We really need people to be sitting back and saying, moving from that fighting, bracing into, oh, I have the power to create the life I want. How do I want to manifest? How is the light manifesting within me?
And when you start putting our stuff up,
I actually want to do that today.
Well, if you do, let me know, and then I'll let people know.
Yeah.
And
if this is a really good video to put up and get up as soon as possible today, given all of the elections.
And who knows, if we're really successful, they may make a movie about our life.
I mean, that's why I'm doing this. Because am I okay with the movie?
Yeah,
no.
who's gonna play me?
I don't know. I think you should. You should play you. So not only can you get the best movie Oscar, you can get the best actor Oscar.
And it's already
produced it yourself.
Right. And watch it yourself and appreciate it yourself. Right?
And Liz Lemon, high five. Good job, Brian.
Right.
Yeah. But
so let me know though. So because I know I wrote to Mike and told him we were doing this, and he said he'd really love to watch a conversation.
Yeah, I think this would be a really good one to just sort of be the entryway into it. And it's very pertinent in terms of timing. So I want to get it up today.
Good.
Perfect.
So are we done?
I think we're done.
Good. Well, we're not done.
We're not done for now.
We're done for now.
For this hour. But I did read, I'm just going to stop.